This is Jason Verney's podcast. I am Jason Verney. In this episode, I'm going to talk about the film A Taxi Driver. It's recently released in South Korea, and we were fortunate enough to have it premiere in UK, in London, on the 14th of August. And only a week after the Korean release, I believe, roughly a week. This particular film, it was something I really wanted to see mostly because of its subject matter of it revolves around the Gwangju uprising in South Korea. And I wanted to catch this film, although there's been other films regarding Gwangju and the Gwangju uprising, and it was a very political time in history. Only in the 1980s, it's very recent political history, and what happened was pretty distressing, pretty sad, and it still lingers in South Korea and in Gwangju. There was also the Jeju uprising, but although that was on a bigger scale, this one in Gwangju, the riots and all this, the people that got killed, kind of, you could say what they were sticking up for their beliefs, but instead they were told they were communists and they were shot dead and tear gas and everything. I understand, and going back to something I've probably spoken about before in podcasts. Just the fact that communist is not a bad thing. It's just an alternative to capitalism, but. This is back in the sort of the 80s. After I don't want to go into too much about communism and capitalism stuff, but that was some of the thing. The Americans played a part as well with their kind of grip on the on Gwangju and the politics. The president at the time. Anyway, so I wanted to see this film, and it was in a week. It was on the 14th of August. I've been meaning to record this. I wanted to record this the day after, or even the same day, in the recording room here. But not only was I incredibly busy, that was the first of 4 films I saw on consecutive nights in cinemas that week. On the 15th, I saw Dunkirk. On the 16th, I saw another Korean film in the cinema, Battleship Island, which I believe is still out there in Odeons and elsewhere. And then the 4th one was that was in the Korean Cultural Centre, but it was still on the big screen. I guess it was a premiere as well. It was GARAK Market Revolution, and I've done a podcast regarding that. Because that was the 4th one, the last one I saw that week. And it really surprised me. It was better than I thought it was going to be. It's a very recent release, 2017 release, and hence I did a podcast regarding it, because I wanted to sort of get that one in while it was fresh in my mind. I just want to just talk a little bit about the Gwangju connection to me, or to my connection to Gwangju. Basically, I've been 6 times to South Korea now, and on my 5th trip, I think it was, I finally decided to visit Gwangju, because I'd kind of felt like I'd been avoiding it. There's so many places in South Korea to visit, and I haven't really touched. I've not really touched the surface. Of what there is what cities in Korea have and different places and all this, and so I wanted to, because it's somewhere it's a very important place in history, plays a very important place in history, plays an important part in history, perhaps I should say, and it's I mean, even when you say to people, maybe in Seoul, you might say you're going to Gwangju, or you tell people in the UK that who are Korean, and they might say, why are you going to Gwangju? And it's a different, it's not looked down upon or frowned upon as such. I think it's just people don't tend to go there. But when you go there, the people are so warm and so inviting. And so when I went there last year in 2000, towards the end of 2016, I went. It was. I had to go to all the. I wanted to go to the memorial site or sites, and made a friend or two there, and I went back again just about 2 months ago this year. So it was, it holds a big place in my heart as well because of what they've been through, what happened in the political time, the political state of things, the state of play. And I just, I really wanted to see this film because, as I say, Gwangju is a big part of Korean history and South Korean history, and there's still people, let's say, actively being activists about the cause there and what's happened, and there's all kinds of stuff happening with. There's one or two other podcasts out there that I have actually. First of all, I've recorded some in Gwangju, and a handful that I still haven't uploaded. I've been trying to save them for a connection to something Gwangjuan, like this podcast. So I'll probably post a few of those podcasts afterwards in a kind of a flurry of short podcasts that I've already recorded. What was I saying? Yeah, so. I think the reason I wanted to see this was because of the I'll just backtrack. What I was trying to say was there's still stuff going on in Gwangju now. There's people trying to make the city a more appealing place, more. It's a lovely place, but trying to get more people to go to it, perhaps more people to talk about it. There's already the Gwangju Biennale, which is a big art exhibition that's every 2 years, and I actually went there last year after I've been to the Busan Biennale actually, but the Gwangju one was on my list first. And they're already trying to, although they're trying to get people to go there for the art and for the other wonderful things that Gwangju has to offer, they're trying to hide the sort of the uprising, the fact that it took place, and they're trying to. There's people that are trying to, keep the remembrance there and keep the relevant sites there that remember what happened. The memories and people. So it's I visited those one or two places that were kind of the people that were being being activists for these causes, or for this one cause, and there was another cause that led off that. Anyway, I don't want to go too much into politics too much, but this film, as I say, was on the 14th of August, and ironically, I was, for people that know me or know my various video and film projects, the number 14 played a little part in one big project which hasn't seen the light of day, but it will do. So the 14th was it was kind of ironic that was on the 14th, but so many things are now. I've kind of give up on the fact that something happens on the 14th of a month, but this is a Korean-related thing, a very important one. And not only that, another interesting story that happened to me, or I find it quite sort of, despite its kind of connection to the subject matter, I find it quite sort of amusing, or again, coincidental, ironic, whatever. I had to get my tickets for this premiere, and I bought them on one of my cards, my debit, credit, whatever you want to, debit cards, and the 3 digits on the card. I know this is not really going to give it away to anyone, and were actually the 518. That was the security digits, and it kind of. as soon as I saw those, I thought, oh, 518. This is really bizarre as well, because 518 is what the Gwangju date of the kind of the time of the uprising, the date that's remembered, because it was the 18th of May when it's all revolved around, or that's the date that everyone remembers. It's a bit like the Jeju one is the 4-3, because it was the 4th of March. Was it the 3rd of April? Oh my gosh, I should know this, but sorry, I haven't got my notes to hand. But so just, and I thought, oh, that's, you could say, oh, that's an omen, or that's a sign or something, but maybe it was. So yeah, this film, I will say as well, this I guess I should mention this, and I have done in other podcasts, or one or two. This particular UK premiere was due to the Korean Cultural Centre in conjunction with their own London Korean Film Festival, which is coming up in, I think it's October or November this year. And this is a teaser screening. Although this a teaser doesn't mean this film is actually going to be playing. There's been a few screenings this year, mostly premieres, I believe, if not all, as kind of a taste, or just to get momentum building for the film festival itself. So that's what this was, and they've been doing a really good job of that, and it was good for them to get this film, especially after a week or so after it had been released in South Korea. It was also good to see a handful of my fellow London Asian Film Society members at the premiere. I will just plug that again. The London Asian Film Society is, facebook.com/London Asian Film Society is our kind of Facebook group page. You can find out information about London events, film events, and just news about Asian film. But yeah, with my website, minimovie.com, and others, are, we are co-founders of this this page, and Twitter feed, and all that kind of stuff, all the stuff that you have these days. So it was really good to see them. But so I would say to go straight into the film, but I wanted to give a bit of backstory about why I wanted to see the film, what it was about. I haven't actually gone into the actual plot, but I'll cover that in a sec. So, by the way, the director is a guy called Jang Hoon, and as I say, the film title is A Taxi Driver, not Taxi Driver for obvious reasons, De Niro and blah blah blah, Scorsese, and its Korean title is Taxi Wunjunsa. I believe that's right. Wunjunsa meaning driver, taxi, funny enough, meaning taxi. So. Yeah, the film is based loosely on a, like most films are these days, loosely. These films that say they're based on a true story, it's often loosely based. Now this film, although it's about the taxi driver, is actually Korean. He's played by Song Kang-ho. A brilliant actor. I mean, some people say that he's in nearly every film these days, too many, and some people say no, he's in the right amount. He's not a bad actor. He's good, and I guess I actually had the pleasure of really briefly meeting him in Busan Film Festival a few years back. Yeah, he seemed a nice guy. But basically, yeah. So he stars he's the main character. However, the film and the main plot wasn't really about. It's really about him. It was really about this reporter who came over, who had a taxi driver, who happened to be, this Korean guy is the taxi driver who was his. So it's almost, the film is about this taxi driver, but even though the story, I suppose, there is, even at the end of the film, there's a bit of information about the real life reporter or taxi driver, both, I believe. Sorry, I believe there is, but I just don't want to give too much away. So it's about this taxi driver. This reporter comes over. A certain reporter comes over. He hears about the issues from another. He's in another country, I believe it's Japan, and he hears about the issues going on in Gwangju in South Korea. So he rushes over there to report and you know, to capture it on film and what have you. He needs to get from Seoul to Gwangju, so he enlists the help of a taxi driver, and this is our taxi driver. Although he in the film he sneakily kind of nicks the job off somebody else, and he realizes that there's a lot of money to be made in foreigners getting in taxis and going to Gwangju or whatever. So it's kind of he's used by this foreign correspondent, I suppose. I will actually just state something on that. The actors, when we meet this group of non-Koreans, basically, who are one of them's a reporter, and other ones, I believe, is connected to that. You know, the first person who speaks, you think, oh gosh, this is one of these situations where it makes you kind of cringe because you hear the accent and you hear them speaking in English, but and also with, I can't remember if they had that particular actor had a foreign accent, or was it? No, it was English. I think it was an English guy, and you always think, oh, that sounds so wooden. But I mean, maybe it's just because we're English and we hear it in a foreign film, and it just it just doesn't sound right. But the other guy who has got a foreign accent, I mean, I think this guy is German. I do hope I've got the facts right there. I'm trying to, apologies if I haven't. But he, when he speaks, and he seems to kind of blend in. I don't think he was out of place. He's actually a pretty good actor. So he he gets in the taxi, and they go off to Gwangju. Now, of course, what makes this, I suppose, what makes the comedy in this film, and there is a lot of comedy, and despite the issues in the film and the subject matter of what it's covering, it does the comedy very well. And the comedy ensues partly because he doesn't actually, this Song Kang-ho's character doesn't really know what's happening in Gwangju. It's kind of in a way, it reminds me of the way Seoul and Gwangju are now. The people in Seoul perhaps don't really know what's happening in Gwangju. It's perhaps one of those things. And then again, if I live in London, do we really know what's going on in every other city? I suppose there's lots of comparisons there and parallels. So some of the comedy is that. Some of the comedy is the fact that they're talking his very basic English to the visitor, and there's lots of amusing sort of. The audience were laughing a lot in this. I mean, I was too, and the Korean audience and the non-Korean audience in London. At the UK premiere, which incidentally, as I said, it was put on by the London Korean Film Festival people, i.e. the Korean Cultural Centre guys, but it was in the Picture House Central, which is in Shaftesbury Avenue area, Soho. Brilliant little, nice cinema. So yeah, there was lots of laughs, and it's there's so many bits in the film that I could probably point out and analyse if I really wanted to. But I will say when it gets to the parts of the scenes with the riots and stuff, it does do it very well. It's quite emotional. It's quite hard hitting what you see. People getting killed, hurt. The film, like a lot of Korean films and some other foreign films that I can think of, especially Korean films. I mean, this is the reason when people ask me why did I get into Korea, or how did I get into Korean films? Why didn't what interested me? I mean, yes, it is the genre, the genres. Even when something is a comedy, it's not always just a comedy. And also when it's a tragedy, it's not always just a tragedy. And there's so many things in one film, but this doesn't mix it up so much throughout. It does stop being a comedy so much to halfway or 2/3 of the way through, when we're dealing with the real subject matter. And there's lots of I don't think it dwells too much on it. I mean, people said about the other film, one of the other films I mentioned, which is Battleship Island, that it was a bit over sentimental or overindulgent and over patriotic perhaps. But whereas this one, I mean, maybe I had a bigger heart for what was happening and what's happened. I was looking out for parts of the city that I might recognise, even though I've only been to one part of Gwangju. I haven't really explored too much. You know, I mean, and I don't know where parts of this were filmed and set, but it was, you know, I was looking out for it. But I mean, just emotionally with this what happened back then, you know, they couldn't keep the comedy going throughout there. But that just shows you how these Korean films, especially, you know, they do it so well. You know, there's a bit of not so much slapstick, but there's a lot of silly humour, and you know, he's getting things wrong, and he has to bluff his way to get to, you know, this is all about it's all partly about his getting the money from the foreigner. He needs to get to this destination, otherwise he won't get his full fee from his foreign, you know, passenger. So there's a lot of comedy in that. I do just what I think of it, I mean, because he's in the taxi a lot of the time. You know, I don't know if this was intentional. I don't know how real it was to the period, but I mean, it's a green taxi, and he's got a bright yellow uniform shirt. You know, there's definitely a shirt that's yellow, and you know, the contrast is really good. I think it's a really good choice. I don't know if it was coincidental or just, you know, it really, you know, I don't know if that was a very clever sort of production design option, but it works. You know, him with the yellow shirt and clothing, and the green car, it just seems to, it appeals. And it also maybe even reflects on the period. Maybe it's, you know, it's just the way the colours were sort of, I don't know if it's primary colours or even perhaps pastel if they're not so bright in the trailers that I've also seen lately, because I've been this was a couple of weeks after I'm recording this a couple of weeks after I saw the film, so I wanted to refresh my memory without reading any other reviews. I just wanted some things that I'd mentally noted. Yeah, so it's a good film. There's humour, there's sentimental moments, there's the foreign correspondent. He goes to the house, someone's house in Gwangju, who's putting them up, and there's funny touching moments there. Some singing involved by one of the activists or rioters, sort of, you know, protesters in the city of Gwangju. It's very well done. I mean, it seems to recreate the time. I mean, I'm saying that without having any knowledge of how things were at that time, really. I mean, it's just by what I imagine the setting and the era to have been like. I mean, God, it was the 80s or just the very start of the 80s. So I mean, so much has changed in South Korea in that time, since between then and now. So you know, there's I'm sure there's lots of stuff that I could diagnose and analyse and break down further about this, but I think the film it does it really well, and I was happy enough. It was, as I say, despite the subject matter, it's very it's well done, it's well made. As I say, the director Jang Hun, he's done a good job. And I think it was really, when the film was coming out, it was very hotly anticipated, as they say. I think, as I say, there's been other films about the Gwangju uprising and what happened in that period, in that time. But this, it's a different take on it, and also being a kind of a 50% comedy film, it was quite sort of brave, maybe. So yeah, and I'm just trying to think of some other scenes that were memorable. I mean, there's the bits where there's the parts where he has to get to Gwangju. He really has to get, and because of the money, as I mentioned, for the passenger, he needs to get the money from him, but he has to talk to the army people, the army patrol, and the people that have blocked the roads off. They somehow bluff their way, or somehow get sympathy or something to get through the what sort of kind of a makeshift border into Gwangju itself. And then there's this, I suppose, the expected scene of, oh, you like spicy food, to the foreign correspondent. It does get a bit like a sort of a kind of a cat and mouse game at the end, when we're talking they're getting of course they're going to get chased by the military or the police, or as I say, I don't want to give too much away, but it's there's the role of film involved, that the correspondent's been used to film all the stuff. So it's there's some stuff that you expect. There's a scene where I think it pretty much opens with the scene of our actor Song Kang-ho singing in the car, and I believe it does later on in the film. It's just, I think it did well, and I think it's doing well in South Korea now, or it definitely was a couple of weeks ago. I will also say that it is it's on a release now in the UK. It's definitely on in London in the Odeon Cinema, definitely the Odeon Panton Street. I think it's been on this week, so I'm not sure when you listen to this podcast, but I would hope that it's still on somewhere. I mean, tempted to see it again myself on the big screen, but we shall see. So I think I've covered everything I wanted to talk about. I mean, there was always something I'll probably leave out, but I mean, I would definitely check it out. Even for people that are new to Korean cinema, it's it's a good introduction, because not only does it tell you something about the period, the time, the troubles. It really it just gives you an introduction to Korean film in general, and it's not like you're watching something that's a bit wacky. Or a bit violent, as people always associate Korean films with being violent. And so as I say, I'd just like to plug the Korean Cultural Centre, because they've been responsible for many screenings, not just this year, over the years, and as they were the reason, I suppose, that I embarked on my Korean documentary and Korean research and a love of most things Korean. I could say all things Korean, and I suppose it is. But the kccuk.org.uk, I believe, is their website, or koreanfilm.co.uk is the London Korean Film Festival's website. But the details are always on the KCC website. There's other stuff I could plug away, but I'm not going to. I'm going to leave it at that. And I hope you've enjoyed, or at least got a little bit of insight in this film. And if you happen to listen to this on YouTube as opposed to iTunes, because these podcasts are on iTunes and YouTube, feel free to leave a comment or send a message on YouTube, and I will respond. Or just let us know if you've enjoyed the film, or even if you enjoyed the podcast. But other than that, I will bid you farewell, and I will say speak to you in the next podcast, which will be very soon. Okay, goodbye.